In our last lesson, we learned how to create a form, and now we're going to add a record using the form. The field properties we set earlier still control the data that is allowed to be entered here. So for the price field, I still have to make sure I enter the price correctly. But the one thing I don't have to worry about in this field is the $sign, because the data type we set earlier automatically generates this for me. Now the same thing goes for the category field. We must enter one of the categories that we told Access to accept. So if I enter cars here, I get this message. We want to make sure we enter a category that's actually in the bookstore. But what if we don't have all of the category names memorized? An easier way to make sure we enter a valid category is to create a drop-down list that lets us choose which category the book belongs to. Right now we don't have a drop-down list, so we have to type in a category name. Let's just type in fiction. It's a good idea to save the information you enter or edit in a form, because sometimes information will only show up in the table after you've saved it. Let's take a look at our books table to see if our information saved. If the information doesn't show up in the table, you may need to click the Refresh All button. Now, as I said before, the form is just another way to enter data into a table. Since the form is supposed to be an easier way to enter data, we'll fix the category field on the book's form by making a drop-down list. Let's look at the book's form in Design View. To make a category drop-down list, we'll select List Box or Combo Box from the Controls group under the Design tab. List Box makes a list where you can see several choices in a list, and the Combo Box makes a nice drop-down menu. I'm going to choose the Combo Box command from the Controls group. When I move my mouse over my form, a crosshair with the Combo Box icon appears. Since we want to add the list to the category fields, I'm going to left-click and draw a box right on top of the text box. I want to make sure I line it up just right. I could have decided to delete the text box, but it would have changed the layout of my form. Now when you release your left mouse button, this combo box wizard appears. We have 3 options to choose from. We're going to choose the second option that lets us type in our own values. This is a good choice for us since the categories in our store are pretty constant. We don't have too many categories and we won't be adding new categories very often, so this option makes sense for us. Now click Next to advance. On the second screen, we're going to type in our category names in this area that looks like an Excel spreadsheet. Now we only need 1 column of choices for the category fields, but if we had more, we could change this number right here. Click Next to advance. Now from this part of the wizard, we'll choose a second option. This option tells Access that we want to save the value that the user selects from the category list within a field in the table. Next, we select Category because that is the field we want to populate. So when a user selects one of the choices in the category drop-down list, it saves that choice in the category field of the table. On the next screen, we can give our combo box a name. This field is unnecessary, so I'm going to leave it as it is and delete it from the design view. Alright, it looks like we're finished here. Now if you look closely, you'll see this little box over here to the side of the drop-down list. As I said before, it's not necessary, so let's delete it by selecting it and deleting it. Now if I don't delete it, it will show up on our form and it's just an eyesore and somewhat of a distraction. Let's go to the form view so we can see what the drop-down looks like. If I click on the drop-down arrow, I can see all of the categories I entered. So now when I enter a record, I can just click here to input the category. Now once the data has been entered in the form, go ahead and save it. You may need to refresh the actual table to have the data show up there. Now I showed you how to enter a record using a form, but you can also edit an existing record using a form. In our last lesson, we learned how to use find and replace to change information in the customer's table. Well, it works the same way with the form. Right now, I'm going to the navigation pane and open the customer's form. Let's find Kiara again. This time, I want to change her zip code. Great, I found the record. Now, on my form, I'm going to go to the zip code field and change it right here. Let's save our changes and go back to the table to see if it's there. And again, if not, we'll just hit refresh. I told you forms made things easier. In the next lesson, you'll learn how to create very specialized buttons on forms to control even more of what your user can enter.